So imagine the stress around something like that where, the chance of that terminating was so high every time that it was just a conversation. We said, okay, let's just, a couple more days, let's just see how we go, a couple more days. And it was 6 months before we settled. And we had the same conversations with the other side too, saying, look, they are genuine. This is what they want to do.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share conversations I've enjoyed with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits this has created. Get Invested helps you to live more, work less and leave a legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, to make the most of your investment journey and ultimately to be living the dream. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at khgroup.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening and let's get invested. Freedom fighters, welcome back to the Get Invested podcast. I don't know about you, but when someone mentions the word lawyer, I immediately break out in an anxious sweat thinking problems, conflict and big costs. I'm nervous to talk to them because I'm scared that the expensive taxi meter is running out of control. Well, I'm glad to say that this is not the case with today's guest, Katie Richards. Katie is an absolute inspiration. Growing up in a small country town in Queensland, she's worked extremely hard to smash through barriers that would have defeated many others. But her relentless passion, her persistence, along with her rare ability to find solutions where everyone else sees problems, combined with her extremely hard-working ethic to make Katie the success she is today. Katie is now a successful lawyer, entrepreneur, an educator, an author, and a disruptive innovator. Growing up seeing the challenges that everyday Aussies face, Katie has a vision to improve accessibility of good legal services to everyone, regardless of financial position or geographic location. And this is why her successful business, Virtual Legal, has been born. In contrast to the rest of the industry, Virtual Legal are a high-energy team of lawyers who have created a user-friendly online platform that allows standard legal services to be done at a fixed upfront price, all without leaving your home or your office. They help you to save time, money and stress, while you can operate from anywhere to get it done. Katie's team helps you with a broad spectrum of commercial legal services, including things like conveyancing, leasing, business purchase or sales, franchising, company and trust establishment, and estate planning and wills, just to name a few. I can personally vouch firsthand on Virtual Legal's prowess, having helped many of our investor clients with cost-effective interstate property conveyancing solutions, and they've done a fantastic job. Katie's an absolute bundle of energy, so I know you're going to learn a hell of a lot from her journey, so please enjoy listening to Katie Richards. Hi Katie, absolutely awesome to have you on the Get Invested podcast. How's things happening in Brisbane at the moment?
Yeah, we've actually got some great weather in Brisbane finally, so it's beautiful days here, and I'm really pleased to be on here with you today.
Yeah, looking forward to having a really deep dive into where you've invested your time and energy and money over the years, and what, if anything, you'll be doing differently moving forward. But to kick it all off, for those who don't know Katie Richards, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're heading at the moment, Katie?
Yeah, no worries, Bushy. So I'm a mid to late 30s female lawyer, and I'm one of those people that has probably invested a lot of my time over the years into my work. So I came from a small country town in North Queensland, so I'm not from a background which is corporate, so I've sort of learned along the way, but I've created a different lifestyle for myself than a lot of my family and friends from back at home as well. So I guess along that path, I've tried a lot of different things in terms of investing my time and my direction in life. And I think I've finally come to settle on something that I'm quite happy with.
Yeah, awesome. So let's drill into that. So why do you do what you do at the moment, Katie?
So what I do at the moment is I have an online law firm, and that's called Virtual Legal. And the reason that I decided to set that up was I was a bit disillusioned with my corporate lifestyle, and I wanted to do something that I felt like I was contributing back to the community. So I used my legal skills to set up something where everyone could access legal assistance regardless of what they earned or where they lived. And I just chose that entrepreneurial lifestyle 5 years ago.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, you'd be the hated person at the legal party, I'm guessing, at the moment, because having sat in the family law situation many years ago, unfortunately, through a fairly bitter divorce situation, I was scared shitless of what the price tag was going to be with the whole legal exercise. And, I was scared. Every time I picked up the phone, I'm thinking, the taxi meter's running here. My God, what's this going to cost me, and where's this going to get to? So I could see that the traditional legal fraternity would see you as a bit of a pariah. How have you sort of worked through that, and how has it impacted on you in terms of your quite disruptive approach in that regard?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we've actually done. We had to work out a way to bring the cost down in legal, and that's come predominantly from actually creating systems where we can give information to people so you can actually self-educate. Even in the family law space, we're not, I don't know if we're yet the hated lawyers in town, but give us a few months and we're going to be. We're about to release a public self-service platform, and that's where I've been investing a lot of my time and money the last couple of years, along with my team as well, so that you can essentially run all of your own legal matters. And then when you do need advice, you can book in online through the platform with one of the lawyers accredited into the platform for like 20-minute advice segments. So it might cost you $120 to get the advice that you need, as opposed to $2,000, because the rest of the work you can do yourself.
Yeah, awesome. So a big part of what you're doing through that education piece is allowing them to get a lot of that background, and then just getting the specialist input from you and your team when they need it. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's right. And it just creates an ability for people to be able to improve their own lives. And, that's why I started this whole thing years ago, was because, when you get the opportunity to empower someone, I think it has a really positive impact on you as well as it obviously being positive for them. And one thing you'll find with a lot of lawyers is they don't tend to enjoy their work as much as they did when they first became a lawyer, because people only ever come to us with problems. So if you can actually be one of the luckier lawyers who gets to empower people and help them find a better way and literally change their lives, then it's you finally get to do something that's really satisfying.
Yes.
And for me, that's where success is where you're actually happy doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
and making money.
And yeah, of course, they go sort of hand in hand. But that's awesome, Katie, because you're right. Most lawyers are living in a life of conflict and negotiation, and that must be very wearing if you're in the middle of the battle zone most of your working life. So taking a different approach in relation to empowering your clients to feel better about themselves and be in a better position to look after their own situation, I can imagine would be very gratifying and probably good for your own mental health.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go back to the start then, and I want to sort of focus on the journey right from the country town, and I share that with you. The reason why they call me Bushy is I'm a boy from the bush. And take us through your journey in relation to what you invested your time, your energy and your money in along the journey, and what changes did you make and why, and what benefit has that had to you up until where you are today?
Yeah, so when I grew up, my folks had divorced when I was one.
Wow.
And so we didn't really I didn't grow up in an environment where I was given everything. If I wanted to earn something, I literally did chores for, my family or for the neighbors or whatever. So I was learning how money worked from a very young age. And there were sort of really two things I used to invest. Oh, let's be honest, three things. One of them was lollies.
Yep, snap.
So if I had any change after lollies, I used to work part-time from the age of about 8, just doing ironing and that kind of stuff for everyone else.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
that I could buy the things that my parents wouldn't be able to afford for me to have. And because of that, I think I learned, how to buy and how to trade and those things at quite a young age. My mum taught me how to budget when I was around the 7-8-year-old mark as well. So,
Awesome skills.
So I was very lucky in terms of my education around how to use money correctly.
Yep.
And I think really where I went from that is that once I had the things that made me happy, I then started using that money to do things like, go to camps or learn languages. And I just developed a real yearning for education all the time.
Yep.
So I sort of went from stuff to education. And then as you sort of move into your teenage years or your early 20s, I was obviously already at university and you get HECS there, so I didn't have to invest as much in my education. But then you start, I guess you fall back into investing in stuff again for a little while.
Yeah.
And then I flipped back again to, investing in something that will create a future for me so that I can have lifestyle, because I've missed a lot of lifestyle in the last 37 years, mostly because I've just worked so many big hours.
Sure.
So now what's important to me is actually lifestyle, but I have to build a machine that works to create that.
Yes, of course. And is virtual legal in the way you've structured part of that vision of getting time back?
Yes, absolutely. So virtual legal is, although the Law on Earth portal that we're releasing in a couple of months, that is the pinnacle of the virtual story. So that's the self-service platform. And the reason we did that is that when I had an accident a couple of years ago, I basically was wiped out from my business. Now, if anyone is a business owner, you know that if you don't have your business structured quite correctly, and you've typically although you have other staff members, you haven't to a certain extent bought yourself a job.
Yes.
And you get wiped out, things don't run so well. So we've had to make a lot of changes here to make sure that that's not the case. And that's where the platform idea has come from, is we had to write down all the procedures of how to do things. This was a head injury that I had. So I had a lot of memory issues for a while. But yeah, that's sort of, where the idea of the platform came about.
That's very interesting, because it's something that we've found in the work that we do with clients, and we tend to focus on entrepreneurs or C-suite employees, middle management, and remote resource workers who enjoy extremely high incomes, but it's all dependent on their own personal input. And I guess one of the frustrations and the fears I have for a lot of those employees is that because they're so busy and so tied up in their career, they're not taking the time to invest in things in parallel to their career that will ultimately replace their income and then give them some time back. So given you've sort of hit that crossroads with the head injury you mentioned, I can hear that you're systemising the business to make sure that it's not so reliant. Are there other things that you're doing that are going to enable you to take more time back? And if so, what are they, and what are you doing in that area, please, Katie?
Yeah, so part of moving across into that new system will mean that I can reduce my work hours significantly, because the system will actually make money while I'm not doing anything. And then when people actually need you to jump in, you can do that. But so getting that balance again. The other thing I started doing the last couple of years too to manage the just the stress of business, I guess, is investing into stuff like mindfulness and learning how to find calmness in a hectic environment.
Let's talk about that, because every man and his dog's talking about living in the moment and the need for mindfulness. What does that mean to you, and what are you doing to take us through the actual things that you are doing that people can perhaps pick up and do themselves to get some benefits there? Yeah,
okay. So essentially what I did initially is I went to a mindfulness class. I started doing that about a year or so ago, and that was just once a week, 1 hour, where these people, they teach us about what mindfulness is and how it's okay, where you understand that your mind will race sometimes, and it's okay to accept that happens, but then you can just bring it back into a calm place. So one of the things, because I'm still quite time poor at the moment, between building this platform, running a business, and my UK law exams.
So you haven't got much on then, Katie.
Right? We're about to move office as well, so we'll just chuck that in the mix. Oh, I know. But my poor partner. Anyway, so I have to try to, deliberately find the time to create that space so that my brain takes a break, because I am doing extraordinarily long days.
I bet.
That will generally be, just taking 10 or 15 minutes out in the morning just to sit out and put like some meditation kind of music on, just so that you deliberately allowing your brain 10 minutes just to chill out before the day gets hectic.
How do you stop the monkey mind jumping in though? Because I have this issue all the time. I end up staring at the ceiling for a fair bit of the night because I've just got this active brain. And I do all of the watch your breathing thing and move down your body thing and work through all of that. But I still find it difficult just to still the mind and learn to be still. How have you manoeuvred through that so far?
Yeah, look, I have monkey brain too. So you just have to keep bringing it back, like gently bring it back. Whenever you realize your mind's often racing again, I'll basically just almost like a little pep talk. It's like, yep, I know you've got all these things to do, but why don't you just take a break just for a few more minutes? And because I know, like, once you get into a habit of it, it gets easier. And because I'm not asking myself to do it for half an hour or 3 hours or 5 hours a day, it's literally 10 or 15 minutes. So what I did is when I realized I was really short on time all the time, and someone said it's not that you don't have time, it's just that you haven't prioritized this as something that's really important in your life.
Yep.
And everything else is more important to you. So
yep.
I thought, well, if I'm going to be good at what I do, I need to give my health a higher priority than what it's had. Because I stopped doing all my marathon and all that kind of stuff when I had the fire extinguisher accident. So that basically meant that I wasn't getting my mental peaceful time from my running, 60, 80 kilometers a week. That all stopped. Yeah. So I had to reintroduce different things that I can do now that I can't run the long distances, but I can do other things that still elevate the priority of my health so that I can perform at a much better level during the day because I've stopped for that one moment in the morning.
Yeah, sure. So you start the day that way, and that pretty much sets the scene and the tone for the day for you, Katie?
Yeah, it does. It sort of sets the tone a little bit. And then, there'll be things that happen during the day, and your day will go up and down. But, in the office, we've got the lemongrass diffusers, and we've got some Google playing in the background, some kind of rainforest music. So you would never know it's a law practice.
Yeah, awesome.
Waiting for the massage chick to come out.
I can't wait to come to your office then, Katie. I'll look forward to that. Hey, take us back a little bit, because I'm sort of very interested on your thinking, motivation and inspiration around your journey from, let's take it back to when you finished uni, because sort of doing the old Google stalk and looking at your progression, both corporately and otherwise, there's some interesting twists and turns in that. So I'm just, can you sort of take us through what you did when you left uni, why you went to where you did, why you changed and where you moved, and what was the overall thinking around where you're investing your time and energy and money on that part of the journey?
Yeah, so when I only ever wanted to be a doctor, ironically turned out to be a lawyer.
So well, let's. I want to drill straight in there because that's really interesting. So the doctor thing was that was a childhood passion. But what had led you to believe that you wanted to be a doctor?
Yeah, so I had most of my aunts are nurses. And I just grew up in an environment where I thought, I wanted to do that. And then I got shot with a hunting arrow when I was just before I turned 8.
Oh my God.
You'll notice I'm a bit accident prone.
You've got a target on your forehead by the sounds of things.
Right, totally, yeah. So over the period of that, it ended up with a mycobacterium in my leg when I was 8. And so we had 5 operations in the hospital until they realised it was whatever bug had gotten in there was eating away at all the flesh in my leg.
Oh, good grief.
So we had to do all this these operations and then 2 rounds of plastic surgery to fix it. And you can barely even see the scar on it now. It's amazing.
Wow.
But because of all that, I was that child that woke up several times during the year after operations, and you'd get to see all the inside workings of your leg because they couldn't close it over; it had to heal from the inside out.
How old were you then?
So I 8.
Oh, good grief!
8.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So because of that, and I was always an inquisitive child, and mum and the doctors would actually tell me exactly what was happening and what was going on, and I'd read the medical books back then. So I just had a really keen desire to learn how to do those things. And I just found it fascinating. So then I did all my work experience and all that kind of stuff in hospitals, and I worked, as a nursing assistant all the way through school as well.
Okay.
And then I went to James Cook, and I was supposed to bring medicine in. I didn't want to go too far away from family at that stage, so I used to be quite shy. Imagine that.
No.
And, yeah. So back then, essentially, I was just doing whatever I could to get into that medical space. And then they were going to bring medicine to Townsville, and they didn't bring it in after the first year. So I was just doing general med sciences in the occupational therapy strand. Right. Then after the second year, they said again, it's still going to be one more year off. So I just had enough. I just want to get on with my life.
Yep.
So I moved to Brisbane, and they said, no, you can't do medicine here without doing a whole science degree first.
Oh, good grief.
So I thought, well, I've invested all this time in the last 2 years. I'm going to, I'll go and do business and law so that I only have to spend 5 years at uni from now rather than, another 9.
Sure.
And I ended up spending 11 years all up at uni anyway.
So the flicking the switch to law, there must have been some attraction there. What was it that led you down that legal path?
Well, I used to watch a lot of Ally McBeal.
So did I. One of my favourite shows. I'm right there with you.
And you know what? She seemed pretty happy, and there was this cool bar downstairs, and I didn't realise law's nothing like that. So I did business marketing, and I loved doing marketing stuff. I loved the business stuff. My grandfather had a big engineering company.
Okay.
So I thought, I'll be a businessman like him because I liked wearing suits and heels. So I really think I got into business and law for all the most obscure reasons. And then when I was there, everyone just kept saying, "Oh, look, you're just not the lawyer type. You have too much personality for law, and you're not going to get a job because you're not from a family from law." And
yes, I know that.
Go to a private school here, like I went to a private school back in North Queensland, but I didn't go to one of the top schools here, so you'll never get a job. And I thought, well, you know what? I just went around and offered my services for free to some barristers, and they went, "Yep, no dramas, but we'll pay you. That's fine."
Wow. Okay.
I used the country background and personality to actually get where I needed in law, as opposed to who I was or where I came from.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've got a really parallel journey because I was an architect for many years, and architecture in Adelaide is very similar. All of the architects come from architectural families, all went to the right public schools. I was a boy from the bush from a state school, and I ended up working for free for 6 months when I graduated just to get some experience, and then ended up going up to New Guinea to do what I call my Indiana Jones thing for a couple of years. But very similar. It was pretty much a closed shop, the architectural fraternity, and it sounds like the legal fraternity in Brisbane was pretty similar. So kudos for the strength and determination to break through that.
The funny part was, Bushy, that when I got into the legal stuff for the guys at the Inns of Court, I'm a bit of an avid baker. So every week I would bake either cookies or biscuits or cakes or something, and bring that in. And then that's how I got to know all the barristers around town, was because they all knew that there would be cake on Tuesdays.
Love it.
And that's where the networking started. That's where I started getting offered the good jobs in legal, was because I had already met these people that would put me forward for them.
Yeah, so that's brilliant. That you probably weren't seeing it at the time, or maybe you did, but the relationship side is important in anything we do, and what you were doing as a way of actually building relationship there, so that you're a known entity rather than just a CV. That's brilliant work, awesome work. Now, so you left uni, so you got through that, and take us a little bit, because I just noticed a couple of ducks and weaves in relation to what you're doing there, and let's drill straight into the time you spent with NAB, because again, it felt like a little bit of a tangent. But I want to understand what your thinking was at the time, and what led you to spending some time as a business banker, basically. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, so I did business banking and legal at NAB. So but like I was saying, I was a bit disillusioned with the corporate career in legal. Just felt like everyone always comes to you when there's a problem, and I had the power, as most lawyers do, to really make a big change in people's lives, not always positive.
Sure.
I just wasn't happy with the way that I was, contributing back to society by using my powers.
Sure. Okay.
And so that's why I left legal. Went over to NAB. NAB came to me and said, listen, we're looking for 5 women to the Horizons program, where you're from a non-finance background. We'll teach you finance, and we'll just drop you in the top of the business bank and see if you sink or swim.
Okay. How was that?
So they basically gave us good salary with no targets for 12 months.
Wow.
And then halfway through that, they canned the program. And then I thought, well, if I want to be a CEO one day, and I didn't think it'd be of my company, but if I want to be a CEO one day, I'm going to need to really have these finance skills down pat. So I just traded my skills as a lawyer with the bankers who taught me finance, because there was no one else to teach me then. The program had been cancelled.
Wow. So it's an arbitrary, almost a positive discrimination exercise by NAB to say, well, we need some females in senior positions in the bank, and now, no, we've decided we don't want that. We'll just switch off the tap. Is that pretty much how it ran?
Yeah, I'm not sure the logistics behind why they ended up cancelling it, but a couple of the girls dropped out. It was very difficult, and they probably weren't prepared to put in the excessive hours required to actually get up to speed and get good at what you're doing and be accepted by the team as well, which was very male dominated. Yeah,
it was a boys' club, was it?
It's brutal, yeah.
Yeah,
but I was used to that. I'm legal anyway, so I didn't care.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, having come in cold into the finance industry myself a dozen odd years ago, thinking how hard can this be, and then suddenly realising just how complex it can be, it must have been pretty daunting for you at the time.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But I do like a good challenge. So it's like a flag to a bull, really, for me. It's like, oh, you can't do this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, watch this.
Love it. So at the end of the 12 months when they cancelled the program, that was like, okay, that's it. I need to look at something else. Were you forced to, or you chose to?
No, I basically, I could have gone back to legal if I wanted to, but at that point I said, no, I'm going to give myself 2 years in finance. Yep. But from that point, there wasn't any program for me to just float around in. I then had to actually accept a full-time position as a senior business banker in Brisbane City, and really hustle to make sure that I was meeting targets and all that kind of stuff as well. So I did that for 2 years.
Yeah, awesome. How did that go? Did you enjoy that?
It was hard. It was quite tough. But again, like we were talking before, it's all about relationships. So I wouldn't approach finance from the same way that a lot of my colleagues were doing it. Yes. I would basically go out and talk to my clients about outcomes.
Yes.
And say, where's your life going? What do you want to see happen? What's your ideal? Show me what you've got. And I say, okay, well, I don't think you're on the right path here to get there. But if you restructure this and restructure that, blah, blah, blah. So I show them from a legal perspective what they should go and talk to their lawyer and accountant about.
Awesome.
And just get them to put some personal plans around their financial plans.
Love it. So, yeah.
Then they're emotionally involved, emotionally connected to where they were going. So if I call them and said, hey, listen, you've blown out your you're lending in this month by a certain amount, or, you've got an account that you keep having overdraws on by 1 or 2 cents. Can you just leave $100 in there so it doesn't do that, because it's ruined lending rates? And if you do this, you can't get that holiday in 2 years' time. Like, you connect it to something that mattered to them.
Yes.
I had really happy clients. I think I was the only banker that had happy clients at the time, because it was post-GFC.
Yeah, brilliant. So I love the thinking, and it's again that parallels our approach. I mean, finance is a big part of what our business does, but that's the last thing we talk about. It's all about where are you heading, where do you want to be, what's the gap, how are we going to get you from here to there, what are the outcomes, what are the benefits, what are the rewards that you're going to enjoy along that path. And the last thing that gets talked about is the rate on the loan that's going to be put in place to help them grow the wealth and facilitate all that. So I love the almost intuitive thinking on your behalf, I guess. And obviously you'd be having extremely different conversations with your clients to every other banker that will be trying to get their business.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of where we got the loyalty, because as you can imagine, especially in 2010, 2011, every banker from every bank was trying to take each other's clients. It was,
I bet.
it was a vulnerable time for the industry generally, and I didn't have to worry about that because. And even the fee conversations weren't a big thing. I never gouged them anyway.
No.
But they knew that, like, if I said, look, this is what I think you need to do, they trusted me to sort of, give them, what I think they could do. And it was purely based on what they wanted.
Brilliant.
So,
yeah, if you'd outlined the game plan from the outset and you keep coming back to that, then it's a great sort of measuring stick that keeps them motivated around what they're doing now and how what you're helping them with is actually going to help achieve that. So it's a awesome approach. So love that. So what triggered then the move? So you're obviously doing pretty well in that space, but you obviously decided to jump. What triggered the jump and why did you make the next move to?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting actually because. I went away on holidays for 4 weeks, and when I came back, while I was away, there was a review that was done, and my team voted very lowly our team leader at the time.
Okay.
And the way the bank dealt with that was actually by dispersing the team, getting rid of the team.
You're kidding.
As opposed to getting rid of the leader. So yeah. So that was interesting. But what I basically came back to I didn't have a job when I got back from holidays. And I said, well, I had nothing to do with this. I didn't even put a review in because I was away for the whole 4 weeks when this all happened. And so they said, well, you'll have to move down to Melbourne and we can get a job for you down there. And I went, nah, I'll just go back to NAB Legal, thanks. So they put me up into the legal, which was handy because then I was working with the same bankers still.
Right.
But then I was able to push the deals through for them.
Okay.
And so I got to see what happens in the bank on a legal perspective. But then I only had a couple of months there until the end of the banking year. And then, again, I would have to either move down to Melbourne or decide what to do. So that's when I got out and decided I'd just do my own thing. Yeah,
okay. And you did your own thing, or again, doing the old web stalk? It looks like you've spent a bit of time with Industria and GE Mining, looking at contracts in the Chinese and the South American market. Okay, brilliant. So relationship link. Yep.
Yeah. So I went out there with Industria. They were fantastic to work with, and it was so nice, such a great environment. But GE came in and bought us out. So that acquisition happened 1 month after I got there, and I wasn't within the secured personnel. So when all the axes came through, I was one of the first ones to go. So I think I was there for about 5 months.
Yeah, so it's sort of
like that.
Last on, first off type routine, not about skills or expertise. It's well, you haven't been here, so thanks, goodbye.
Yeah, and that was the point where I thought, well, because I wasn't gonna take that job, and I was gonna just go and do something else. And I thought, maybe I should just save a bit more money first, and then go and do my own stuff. So I started planning what I was gonna do, and then I worked for them in the meantime, and I just went through complete corporate burnout, just doing teleconferences like 2:00 in the morning. And
wow.
And I just got to a point when I'm like, no, that's it. I have to go and do my own thing because this is killing me. So. I took a few months off and then started the company.
Awesome. Now, just drilling into, you talk about dealing with commercial contracts in a culturally sensitive environment. Talk to me a little bit about that. What did you have to do differently, given that you were dealing with different parts of the world?
Yeah, look, it's not just because of the different parts of the world, although that had a big impact on it. So when I was with EcoWash Mobile, we would be working over in the Middle East sometimes, and as you can imagine there's just different requirements of a female in a business role there. Like I couldn't always be in the room when negotiations were happening with another business person because it would be uncomfortable for the person on the other side to have a female in the room. And that's not with everyone. It'd come down to the individual we were working with at the time.
Okay.
those kind of things I'd have to be really respectful about, because, you're coming into their environment. It's their environment, whether it fits within, what your understandings in life are or not.
Sure.
If you step into their environment, well, you need to just be a bit more polite about how you respond. But so those kind of situations, I would have to make sure that the languaging that I was using was, sensitized to who I was dealing with and how they saw me in my role. And also moving from there over to, the Americans as well. They would not want to have anything in writing at all. So you'd then have to sell them, negotiate with them why we have to put this in writing, even though they've got golden handshakes. And then, the French wanted everything in writing. But the other thing too is that we had, lots of different types of personalities within there. And like I studied into the DISC behavioral profiling.
Yes, love it. Yep.
Yeah. And so using that, I could actually shape the way, even with everyday people, that I'm used to dealing with always, how I actually respond. And if it's like a D personality who's a bit more direct, they hate long-winded sentences. They might have 5 or 6 words in a sentence. They want everything dot point, and they don't want the details.
Hey, sorry to jump in there. Just for the benefit of those listening, can you just demystify or dumb down what the DISC profile is, so that everyone's on track with what it means?
Yeah, okay. So the DISC profiling it's a behavioral profiling system that splits off into 4 different categories. The type of behavioral profile that a person will have. The 4 different categories are D is direct or dominance.
Yep.
And that is people that's where you might see someone who might come across as abrupt or rude on the phone sometimes, because they just don't want the big detail. They just give it to them dot point, short sentences. They'll speak to you in short sentences. It'll be like, hey, Bushy, how you going? Where's the contract? When am I signing? Okay, send it to me at 10. Beep, gone.
Yep.
No niceties. Whereas you'll get an I personality profile, who is about 72% of the population are I's.
Yep.
They're more intuitive, so they're more social. They want that emotional connection with someone. So you would ask them, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? Before you got into business. Otherwise, they won't connect with you.
Yes.
And then you've got your C personality profiles, which are people like your accountants and engineers who are very small detail. They'll want to go through everything. You'll have to allocate more time to working with these people because they have to ask 50 questions before they ever go ahead and make a decision on anything.
Yep.
And so they can be great as well because you know that they've actually made a guided decision because they've read everything.
Yes.
But they're also the people that you want to make sure they feel like they've got control over what they're doing. Like say go and send them to get their building report or get a valuation or that kind of thing because that way they feel like they're not having the wool pulled over their eyes at any point in the time, any point in the transaction because they've controlled it. And then you have this S personality profiles. Now, there's not many people that fall into this, but you'll notice an S who is sensing because they don't like to rock the boat. So say if you were doing a property transaction, an S personality profile would not want to upset the seller by asking for a price reduction if there was a $10,000 issue with the deck.
Right.
So you say, oh, okay, there's $10,000 that you're going to have to put into fixing that deck before you can use the house. Oh, yep, no worries.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas everyone else would say, oh, well, can I get a reduction or what can I do? So you have to help those people protect themselves. They won't stand up for themselves.
Back in the HR days, we used to use that as a interviewing technique, put people through the DISC exercise to get a feel for who they were, how they would respond and what their attitudes were so that we knew how best to manage them. But also an awesome tool to look for those sort of traits in your prospective clients or customers or others so that you can change your behaviour to make sure that you're responding to them in a way that's going to get the best results. So, I mean, it's obviously become almost intuitive to you, Katie, I'm hearing. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think after you get used to how to use it in a business context, you tend to just naturally use it in every other element of your life. And I find that it makes it so much easier having relationships with people and finding that natural click when we don't. So we don't even meet any of our clients. So we form these fantastic bonds with people that we've never met, and I'll sometimes get have the privilege of getting to meet these people at a conference or something at some stage, and they'll walk up to you and they'll just give you a big hug. And at first, it's a little bit creepy because you're like,
"Who is this person?"
But
So is that something that you've embedded in your team's culture? Because I often say to our team, because our business is, given that people are investing in property, we're in a trust business, and I guess you're very similar on the legal front. There's a lot of trust that goes with what they're doing. How have you managed to achieve that remotely? So if you're dealing with them on the phone or you're dealing with them through emails and other mechanisms, what have you done differently that's enable you to engage and get that sense of trust, respect, and sense of fun that flows through from your interactions in that way?
Yeah, I think I literally, it's like we have an open plan office, and I sit right beside my guys so they hear how I respond and react on the phone, and we do a lot of hands-on, like one-on-one training with my team as well. So if there's an issue that's coming up where a client may be a bit frustrated from the outset when they first come to you with previous lawyers they've had, or it might be someone who's just really nervous. I literally will sit with them on every call and we go through with that client so the team member can understand, when it comes to the most extreme of cases, how we can help people move from that emotional position into something else. So I've studied psychology and that kind of stuff as well. So that's just a really good way of showing them how it works. And then when they understand that, they can then, also use that as well. And we have a really fun environment here. So I just wouldn't employ someone who's boring. It would just me. I couldn't do it.
So again, with the old Google stalk, it appears you've probably set up a virtual support team in the Philippines or elsewhere. Am I right in saying that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We actually had Iris over here, so I gave her my apartment to come and stay in Australia for a month.
Nice.
In January. Our Philippine team get the same treats and good salaries and everything as our guys here do.
Brilliant.
So everyone's equal.
But talk to me about again, it's on the similar flavour really, but the challenge of inculcating your sort of fun but focused and professional culture that you've obviously cultivated over time, given that remoteness and again the cultural differences that flow into that. How have you managed to sort of embed your approach in the Philippines with your team there?
Yeah, so I didn't go out just by myself to find the Philippine team. I did that via I actually researched 7 different companies before I chose GoVA over there, and GoVA is actually run by a Brisbane brother and sister who are over there.
Okay.
So I knew Fiona already from Brisbane. I already had that trust, and she knew my personality type. Right. So when we were interviewing for my very first team member over there, it was very specific to make sure that she would be a good cultural fit for me, because I'm probably a little bit different to a lot of the business owners over there too. And it was extremely important to me that they would be treated, not just with respect, but with kindness as well.
Yep.
And it wouldn't be a problem for me to be able to give them more than what the people around them were getting when they worked with other businesses.
Right.
And that person wouldn't be victimized because of that.
Right.
We've actually got Iris working from home now. So when I first met Iris, we'd been with me in 2.5, nearly 3 years now.
Wow.
She had a bub on the way already.
Okay.
And you generally, when they're in that position, they don't tend to be offered jobs just because obviously they're going to have to take some time off.
Right.
But, she just had a real fighting spirit. She's a beautiful person, and she was just the perfect fit for us personality-wise. And so we just worked with her through that period, and she's been an amazing person to have on the team.
That sense of loyalty that you've demonstrated to her, you've probably got lifetime commitment from her as a result of that, which is, that's gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I go over there, I go and take her and her family out for dinner and, go and spoil them a bit while we're there too. So, it's good. She's got such a great sense of humour as well. So the humour flies back and forwards on the email and on webcam over here with our team. So
nice. and like from our own interactions with you and your team, you've got an awesome balance of professionalism, but flavoured with a lot of fun. And it's probably why we've connected, because we run our business in a very similar format. And I think the challenge that we often have is that we have so much fun, and it's a very and we do the same with our clients. It's we tell them up front that there's sort of 4 things that are really important in the way we interact, and that is that we've got to be fast, we've got to be friendly, we've got to be frequent in our communication, and we've got to have a lot of fun on the journey. And if we're both not up for that, then it's probably not going to work very well. How have you balanced that very fine line between that sense of fun and empowering people to pretty much drive themselves, but at the same time maintain that level of professionalism that your clientele expect?
I think it comes down to planning. So we bring a lightheartedness to what we do at all times, but that we'll let them know this is how things are going to be managed from day one all the way through. We'll let you know as and when you need to make decisions on things. Mm-hmm. So generally, instead of just emailing saying, oh, look, this has happened or that's happened, we'll send an email through and say, I'll give you a call. So you'll just talk them through and say, look, this is what they're saying. Let them vent if they want to vent, or and just make sure you've got options for them so they don't just have to come up with an answer. You say, look, this is the different things that you can do. Why don't you have a bit of a think about it? I'll call you again in about an hour to go through it. So it just gives them a chance to communicate with us, know that we're there for them, to guide them all the way through. Like we had a transaction last year that it extended settlement 19 times. Wow.
Good grief. And what caused that?
They couldn't get their finance through from Hong Kong.
Oh, my Lord.
So imagine the stress around something like that, where, the chance of that terminating was so high every time that it literally, it was just a conversation. We said, okay, let's just, a couple more days, let's just see how we go, a couple more days. And it was 6 months before we settled. And we had the same conversations with the other side too, saying, look, they are genuine, this is what they want to do. So that was another position where that was probably quite a high stress one, where the fun wasn't so much in it. And look, we took a massive loss on that file, but we charged fees. And we promised them that we would be there from day one, and we were there from all the way through, and we got it settled. So, but you have to sometimes you don't have to change your personality. You just have to change your approach when things get quite serious. Yep. And so they know that if they still want to be able to have a laugh with you at the end of the day, they can. But when they need us, we're all over it.
Yep. Yeah, and what again what I'm hearing coming through is the dedication to the long-term relationship rather than the quick hit dollars. And I'm sure that the pain that you've been through and what you've incurred as a result, you'll have that client for life, but they'll be telling all their friends and family to make sure they use virtual legal on anything they need moving forward. So it's, again, a big investment in the future in that regard, yeah?
Yeah, and the other thing too, it's a culture thing here too, that my guys know that if it comes to investing in the relationship and that's going to cost us financially, that's okay. Because we generally don't market. So it's really important to us to make sure that at the end of the day, especially if you're in a situation which is a bit frustrating and you know that the file's running a loss and you will sometimes have that, you'll just say, okay, let's just have a talk about it. At the end of the day, let's just keep up with it, put a smile on your face and we get through to the end. Yeah. Because those most difficult situations generally are where we get the best referrals.
Yes.
Especially where someone, if you have someone who's been particularly prickly to work with, because they just don't, they don't like being in stress positions. And conveyancing is one of those situations where people can find it quite stressful.
A lot of emotion attached to it. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've hit on it. I often say to our team as well, it's adversity that creates the opportunity to build relationship, because it's when it's put to the test. And if you're always focused on getting a solution, then when you achieve it, then the reverberation and the ripple effect from that is massive.
Yeah, and then, it's nice at the end when, most of those people actually turn around at the end of the transaction and say, thank you so much. I know I was a bit of a pain. But,
interesting, yeah.
We'll just say, no, you're fine, no trouble. But, and they're the first people to turn around and recommend you when they hated lawyers because their experience so far had always been one that was quite negative. And so they were assuming, that you're not on their side. From day one. So when you get the ability to be able to turn their perception around, that's a really difficult thing to do sometimes, but that's the most important thing that we can do is help them to, know that it's okay to reach out for help. Yes,
yeah, absolutely. No, love your approach. Hey, yeah, let's do a quick pivot. And I sort of coming back to the investment piece, what was the first dollar that you actually invested, Katie, and how did it go?
First dollar I invested at a very young age, or my first bigger investment?
It matters not. Whatever you'd like to share with us.
Well, I think probably my first investment was one that I had to choose. I had the opportunity to I'd been saving up for the Japan trip because I did Japanese at school.
Okay.
So I had to choose between, that Japan trip or buying a car.
Wow.
So that I could, just drive to work and then go to uni the next year. So I chose to buy a car.
Okay.
Then I drove to uni and did Japanese at uni.
Did you end up going to Japan later on?
I have never been.
No.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
My partner and I are talking about maybe going this year because, I can speak. I've been fluent in Japanese and I've never been to the country. It's
awesome. Yeah, it's big on our list as well. We want to go skiing in Japan. We'll probably go next January, I think. I love the whole Japanese culture. As an architect, I love the refined discipline of what they do. Minimalist approach, I just think is awesome. And the whole culture there, I just love the Japanese culture. They're
beautiful people.
The respect. And I had a staff member years ago when I was still active in architecture who we got on a work exchange over in Japan. And he spent some time with the family over there. And he came back and he left his wallet, all his money and all of his everything, ID, you name it, in a park somewhere, and didn't realise until too late. Got back to work here in Australia, and 2 weeks later the wallet arrived. Everything intact, nothing had been touched, because whoever found it spent the time to try and track down and find out where he was and what happened. And you just would not see that here in Australia, or very, very occasionally anyway. So they're a very impressive culture. I love their whole code. Using the old bushy thing, there's a thing called the Bushido Code, which is a samurai code of respect and loyalty, and there's some fundamental truths in how they treat the world. They're awesome people, I reckon. But I digress. So, on the similar theme though, what are the best or most worthwhile investments you've made to date, Katie?
I think probably investing in personal development has been really good for me. Just in terms of, being able to think about, like they say, your thoughts become your actions, and your actions become your lifestyle. So just making better decisions for how I spend my time, who I invest my time with, how I sort of perceive situations. And so that's been a really big investment for me, and that's an ongoing investment too. And I think on a financial sense, because I've had properties before and made money that way. I've had shares, but I think probably the biggest investment for me would be this platform that we're building. Very risky investment. Probably up until now that we know that it's actually working and it's good to go, but that's been a lot of years of investment, but it's going to give me many, many years ahead of lifestyle back that
Yes.
I wouldn't have had I not, just given up everything the last few years and sold down my assets to make it happen.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to circle back and then come back to that then. So talk to me about, you mentioned, and given my interest in property and you talked about shares, talk to me about what you've invested in property and the share market, and how has that gone, and what was the thinking at the time, and what triggered the exit?
Yeah, so I made money with NAB shares. So you get performance shares. So they served me well. I used that to help me start the business back then.
Okay, cool.
I've actually never lost any money on shares before, which is probably a rare thing.
Yeah, nice work.
So, although I'm probably one of those people that looked at them 5 times a day.
Okay, yep.
And then in terms of the property side of things, had the property when I was 18, which was a unit because I didn't want to pay rent. So I got my mum to help me do that.
So that was a property you lived in while you were at uni?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you say that you'd had the deposit saved, or you got help from mum to leverage into it?
My mum. Yes, I had some money, and then she helped me with the rest, obviously, because no one wants to lend an 18-year-old uni student, a couple $100,000. But when I moved down to Brisbane, we sold that property, and it was worth like triple about 5 years later.
Yeah, nice.
But that was a mistake.
Well, they're all stepping stones, though, aren't they? I mean, you obviously needed the funds from the property to do something at that point in time. And
I did, yeah. And I wanted to use that. So for me to get into the straight into law down here, I came down and I did a business diploma.
Yep.
And so because I duxed that, I could get straight into the university of my choice down in Brisbane.
Nice.
So I used those funds to do that, and I don't regret that. Although it just would have been nice to still have that property now.
Yeah. But the good thing is you've had some learnings from that. So is property still part of the mix for you at the moment, or it's pretty much all been injected into the business and building the platform?
No, it's all been injected into the business and the platform at the moment. We looked at buying a property with my partner recently, and some of my my other entrepreneur friends and I are looking at down the probably next 12 months buying a commercial building with our super funds.
Yep.
So that will come back on, but I just want to make sure that everything I do is sort of geared towards making sure this one asset that I'm building this platform, that it's got everything it needs to be successful. We got some government grants coming in for that as well.
Nice.
And also my lawsuit from my fire extinguisher accident.
Yeah, okay.
So that will be hopefully that'll come in this year, and then I'll be able to sort of invest that into whatever we need to do then too. So I might need advice then, Bushy.
Give me a yell. Yeah. Happy to help, Katie. Awesome work. You talked about the benefit of investing in professional and personal development. Can you sort of elaborate a bit on what you've done in that area, who you did it with, and what the benefits or otherwise have been of that?
Yeah, so I did a couple of, smaller courses. I actually went to the Entourage as well for 2 years. And I know that's an entrepreneur school because I did KPI first. That was the first course I did in terms of, my personal and professional development.
I did the reverse, by the way. We did Entourage first and then did KPI, so interesting.
Okay. Yeah, so I learned through KPI, and then after that I went to the Entourage, and I found that to be not just like a business college, but the connections that I made. They taught us a lot about, developing who you are, and then your best business skills will come off the back of that.
Yep.
And so I really learned a lot about myself during those 2 years I spent with those guys.
Yeah, okay.
And then everyone used to talk about, like the Tony Robbins stuff. And I just thought he must have been some rah-rah, like motivation. I went, I don't need motivation. I've got motivation. And then I started listening to some of the stuff on YouTube, which is just about restructuring how you think about stuff. So he's actually one of the people that I'll listen to as well. I think he's got quite a few things that are helpful for me.
Yeah, awesome. So is there, do you listen to his podcast or anything specific that you tune into on Tony Robbins?
No, I actually mostly I have listened to his podcast before, but I mostly listen to the YouTube. So the videos on YouTube. So as I'm running, I'll actually put that on instead of music.
Yep.
And even if you're listening to the same kind of stuff over and over again, it's just a good reminder to really drop it into your brain.
Totally.
To think in a different way. And I used to listen to Gary Vaynerchuk quite a bit. I don't listen to Gary so much these days because I think I've got the hard work down pat.
Yep.
So I think I need just a bit more of, different ways to emotionally sort of accept and restructure your thought processes as opposed to, you've got to work the hard, then, play the long game, because I already do that.
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm a pod freak as well, but I'm very much a mood chooser when it comes to what I listen to in the context of what I need at that particular time. What I love about the whole podcast exercise is that I can listen to it anywhere, anyhow, anytime, and I can replay it and reinforce it as you've well said. But certainly, that old analogy of when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. What I love about podcasts is if I've got an issue around something or I just want to hear another view on something, I just do the old search on iTunes, come up with a podcast that's covering the particular area that I'm looking for, then I'll have a listen to that and pick the bones out of what's interesting. Are there other podcasts that you tune into on a regular basis that you feel other people would benefit from?
I don't listen to a lot at the moment just because I've been a bit time poor. I got into audiobooks.
Yeah, okay.
A couple of the really good audiobooks was Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog.
Yep.
That was a good one. There's also a very long one, so you'll have to take a week off. But Conversations with God, and it's not a religious book. It's just talking about, how would you even put it? It's probably more so talking about, the theories of evolution and how we got here and questioning why we believe things are as they are.
Yes.
So it was just a really good one to sort of stop you in your tracks and say, okay, well, just because this is how it is, why is it like that? Why do we believe that's how it is at the moment? And should we be believing that?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great read. I've read it myself. I'm an absolute readaholic because I've always got about 5 books on the go. And I read them based on how I feel at that particular moment. And I haven't read Brian Tracy's. I've read some of his other stuff, but I haven't actually had a look at that one. So I'll put that on the list, and we'll stick that in the show notes so that people can dive into that if they need to.
The 5 love languages is another one that was brilliant.
Yes. Sonia and I both read that one. That is awesome. That certainly, in the early days of our relationship, actually helped because I've got a different love language to what she does. I'm a tell me and she's a show me, and they're very different ways of communicating. So that was very useful to us in terms of how best to respond in a way that's going to have the right sort of impact. So, no, awesome suggestions. So, flowing on from that then, if there's one quick life-changing quote or a simple message that's your motto or something you want to get out to the masses, what is it, Katie?
Oh, we actually had a workshop this one previously, but when we're talking about playing the long game, that's something that Gary Vaynerchuk would say is 90% of the people who quit too soon are employed by the 3% who never gave up.
Love it. Love it.
Put up on our wall in the office, and I think it's not always true for everyone, but when you're having a really rough day as a business owner and you're thinking, maybe it'd be easier if I just go and work again, you have to sort of stop and say, no, look, we can get through this. This is fine. And if you do, go back to your old lifestyle, you obviously left it for a reason. So make sure your reasons are right, or just get on with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I big believer in exactly what you're saying, because it's the old passion, persistence and discipline that separates those who get to where they want and those that don't. And I see it a lot in property, and you probably do as well, where people jump on board with the property bandwagon. Would you believe over 50% of first-time investors sell the property within the first 5 years? And, I'm always saying to people that, properties are at least a 10-year and more likely a 15-year plus journey. And 80% of the results are going to come in the last couple of years because you've got to go through a full property cycle to enjoy the full benefits. Yeah. And I think the challenge we have as a society is that we're so conditioned now to instant iPhone everything that the ability to take a long-term view and expect that success takes time is just something that's not part of our thinking or our language. So having the smarts to remind yourself of what you've mentioned through Gary Vee and have the team on board with that, I have no doubt will make sure that virtual legal continues to flourish. So awesome work on that front. Okay, let's jump to, well, before I jump to the future, if you were talking to your 18-year-old self, or let's say when you've just finished uni, what would you be telling yourself to invest in differently, if differently, it might not be differently, and why?
Oh, probably less shots. Get out of the bar.
That's where those relationship skills came from, though, Katie. So there's nothing wrong with that.
It's true, though. It's so true. As in the relationship skills, and probably both. I probably would say to myself back then, go for a holiday, go and explore the world, because I spent so much time adulting and worrying about my future and making sure I made all the right moves. And I sacrificed a lot of my life, Bushy, just thinking that if I don't do this work now, or if I don't take this opportunity now, I'll never get it again. Whereas I think if I were to say to my 18-year-old self, or even post-uni self now, is that, you know what, take a couple of months off, go and do a bit of traveling, get a bit of perspective on where you actually want your life to go, not just where you want to be the next, 2-3 years. I think that would be the really solid advice that I wish I would have given myself back.
Yeah, good call. I'm very similar to you. I was in a hell of a hurry to get somewhere, and it was finish uni and go hard and run fast. And part of my thinking's always been do the work and work harder than everyone else, and you'll get there quicker. Was always my thinking. But that's a sprinter's approach rather than a marathon runner's. And I've come to learn that the marathon runners are the ones who ultimately get to the finish line. And giving yourself time, or taking the time to actually allow yourself to think, is absolute gold. And it's something that Sonia and I now do on a pretty regular basis. We just tune out and allow ourselves to sit back and reflect. And it's been awesome in terms of what's come out of that. So, that's really good advice. Hey, let's talk about the future then, and paint for me what your absolute dream lifestyle looks like. So, describe it to me. Where are you? What are you doing? What sort of where are you living? Just put some shape around that for me.
Yeah, so I think that's probably living in the, I'd say maybe the Sunshine Coast. I want a beach lifestyle. And to have, still have my business interests, but not have to be actively, not have to be doing certain things each day.
Yep.
And still have the ability to fly, from country to country, skipping out winter. I don't like cold weather. But that's the plan, is that to have property overseas as well, so that I can sort of fly over and work with my teams over there, but do it because I love doing it and because I can, consult to them, not because I have to grind every day like I have for the last, chunk of years of my life. Yeah,
okay. So if we look at, I'm hearing that the platform you're developing is going to be a big part of enabling that. Are there other things that you're looking to invest in that are going to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be from that time perspective?
Yeah, well, on a personal level, I'm finally taking a bit more and paying a bit more attention. I've said to my partner, I said, look, we can get along with the next stages of our life once after I finish my exams in the next 8 weeks over in the UK.
Yep.
So I think there's going to be a lot of, really positive and exciting elements in my own personal life over the next 12 months.
Yep.
And we'd like to have a family as well. So that's one of the reasons why I have to, carefully manage how my business operates and runs, so that, I can actually physically, not just physically, but, mentally and emotionally be there and not miss all those important parts of my life that I've sort of skipped over a bit over the years just because work has been my priority. So just readjusting my priorities.
Yeah, so is that I'm almost sensing a little bit of regret there, Katie, in the context of that, it's all been about work. Am I reading that rightly, or share that with me?
So. Look, I don't know whether regret is the right word, but I think it's an eye-opener, because when I had that accident, I realised that if I was to go that day, then I wouldn't have been satisfied with the way that I was spending my life. So I've made a really conscious decision the last couple of years since that accident to actually start spending time with the people that I care about and paying attention to things that I don't have time for, like make time, make it a priority. So it's actually been like a second chance at life, really, to get it right and start spending it the way that I would, if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, I could say, well, at least I died happy.
Yeah, well, exactly right. That it's interesting that you say that as well, because that's something that Sonia and I talk about quite often. Is if we got hit by a bus today, would we be happy? And I can gladly say now that I would be. If I passed today, then there's nothing left undone. I'd love to travel a bit more, but I've done a fair swag of that, and I've got some great friends. We've had some awesome experiences. But if you'd had asked me that 20 years ago when I was a 7-day-a-week, 14-hour-a-day architect, I would have felt very shortchanged. So it's really interesting. And I love the way your vision is pretty clear in the context of building a online platform that is going to enable, it'll systemise things so that your team can do more, that your clients can do more, and you can do less, and then you can spend time doing the bits of the business that you want to do, but put time into other things that you want to be enjoying on the journey. Am I summing that up correctly, or? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you've summed it up quite well.
Hey, complete tangent. This is just a pet thing of mine because, and I ask everyone this question, but because I still feel a lot of Australians pay way too much tax. What are the top things that you've done over your journey to save tax and keep more of your hard-earned in your hot little hand?
I think really it's come down to, a lot of it has come down to structuring. And also one thing too is being resourceful. So you don't always have to throw money at something as well. So even though it won't necessarily always go out via tax, if you're throwing money at it and you don't necessarily need to do that, you should sort of think about other opportunities before you just give it all away. But I think just generally structuring. So a lot of people will tend to put everything into their own names and then not consider using a different entity that has a lower tax rate. And then they have, number one, asset protection issues, and then they also don't get to take advantage of, say, even like the company tax rates if they use that kind of entity, which is going to be lower than their income tax rates as they become more successful. So I just think that you have to have a good accountant, have a good chat with them, and have a bit of a direction for where you're going, not just this one particular thing that you're doing, because you don't, especially if it comes to buying properties or businesses, you don't want to have to switch them around between entities and then face potential capital gains and transfer duty tax issues.
Absolutely.
Just because you didn't spend say $1,000 now getting the advice that you should have.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely, totally agree. It's something that we talk to a lot of our clients about who are going on the property journey, because there's a vast difference between, and there's a bit of a transition, a gradation here, where you go from, traditionally people will buy property as joint tenants. We start to investigate initially the tenants in common exercise, so we can slant a higher percentage of the tax credits in the favour of the higher income earner. We then transition into trust arrangements quite often for properties that are being held long term, or consider pumping money into super to then secure property through self-managed super because of the benefits from a capital gains perspective, but also an ingoing and outgoing tax situation. So there's some pretty interesting stuff that can be done, and you're absolutely right. A very good accountant is a cornerstone player in your team, regardless of what you're doing. And certainly, having used a number of accountants over the years, and finally working with one and a couple now that are real experts in that structuring and strategy piece, it can make an enormous difference to the bottom line in terms of what's left in your hand. And as you well point out, the risk side of the exposure that can go with various structures. So very good advice there. Awesome. Okay, just to close on then, Katie, because I could talk to you all day really, but to focus in on what you're investing your time, energy and money at the moment. We've talked a little bit about the platform. Do you want to elaborate on that, or what else are you focusing your energy on?
Because I mostly focus on the platform at the moment, predominantly because it's such a massive amount of work to happen. And then I also have my UK law exam. So they're just two astronomically big things that generally you wouldn't do them at the same time.
No. Can I ask why you're doing your UK law exams? Where's that leading?
The UK Investment Commissioner over there has shown interest in bringing our platform over to the UK and helping us set up there. So
nice.
It's just a really good opportunity to expand internationally. And I'm already a lawyer in Australia and also in New Zealand, so we've got a practice here. But if I set up over there, I can also own the law firm entity over there too. Not necessarily do the work. But literally it buys me a solid ticket at the table with investors when they can see that I've literally learnt all the laws in their country as well.
Love it. Yeah, love it. So I mean, you operate Australia-wide now from a virtual presence clearly, and it sounds like New Zealand's an expansion of that. UK's another one. Are there other potential nations or countries that you would then look to leverage into once that's bedded down?
Yeah, absolutely. I sort of had to choose between the US or the UK because I didn't want to do 2 rounds of exams at the same time.
Yeah, of course.
We'd probably go over to the US as well, but I probably would be able to get investors to help with that side of things.
Yeah.
So I just thought if I can get enough traction between the entities that we're looking at now, then that will sort of just frees me up to get us moving and then get the right joint venture partners on board.
Yep. Yeah, love it. So for we're talking about Aussies at the moment, what would Aussies be coming to you for, and what would they be expecting in relation to the services you provide and the way you deliver them?
Yeah, okay, so we strangely enough, we're doing a lot of probate work lately.
Okay.
But generally what we tend to do a lot of is buying and selling businesses, buying and selling properties, and drafting documents for business owners. So what we tack onto the side of that is, your trademarks, wills and estates. We do some family law stuff. What they won't get from us is we don't do litigation.
Yep.
For 2 reasons. Number one, you have to go to court a lot of the time, and we prefer being virtual.
Yes.
And number 2 is that it's very difficult to fix fee something like that.
Of course.
And it's just quite stressful work. Like, you're deliberately going into the battlefield. And I left private practice, so we didn't have to live in the battlefield.
Yeah.
So I don't want my staff to have to deal with that negativity as well.
Yeah,
either.
no, love the vision. So if we just drilling into the business documentation, can you put a bit of colour around exactly what you help people with in that area?
Yeah, so like this morning I'm drafting a terms and conditions for the personal trainer for his clients. Yesterday we were doing a share sale agreement, shareholders agreement, and you might be doing option deeds. We could be drafting and reviewing leases, doing a lease assignment. Could be franchising. We did a heap of franchise documents for a franchisor, set them all up recently.
Yeah.
Privacy policies, could be website terms. Yeah.
Massive scope. You must have a fair depth of expertise within your team to be able to cope with so many facets of the legal services area, Katie. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And once you sort of learn something, we try to cross train our staff as well. So that if that one particular person wasn't there one day and we needed to do something, there is always someone else in the office who can jump in and help out. Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. No, that is sensational. I know from our own first-hand experience just how well you and your team operate. We love working with you. It's a
a very easy sell to our clients to utilise you, given the fixed fee nature of what you're doing in the conveyancing front for our property clients, and they all rave about how good that process is, Katie. So you've certainly hit the right formula. Katie, if some of our listening audience need to contact you in any of those areas we talked about, what's the best way to do that?
Probably the easiest way to do that would be to go to www.virtuallegal.com.au, because that says everything that we do. It's got all of our pricing all on there as well, so you can get a really good idea of who we are, what we're about, and how we can benefit you the most. Or you can just call us on 1300 550 150. And I'm pretty easy to find, so people find me on Facebook or all over the place. So you just stalk away.
Awesome work, Katie. It's been an absolute pleasure to have a chat. I'm pretty keen to get you back, and we'll probably drill down a little bit more into the property sphere, just to open people's eyes to what you're doing in that conveyancing space. Because it's certainly, we're a bit privileged in South Australia here because the conveyancers don't need to be lawyers. And therefore the conveyancing costs are pretty cheap comparatively to other parts of the country. But increasingly our clientele are becoming borderless investors that are looking at high growth opportunities all around the country, and the ability to partner with someone like yourself who has that ability to help and assist them wherever they are is very rare indeed. So look, really appreciate your time, Katie. It's been an awesome chat, and you keep up the good work, and we'll talk again soon.
Great. Thanks, Bushy. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Katie. How good was that? I hope you enjoyed it. To get a summary of all the investment gold and to get a copy of the show notes, email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.khgroup.com.au/get-invested. And join me next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. Thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die tomorrow.